Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
This is Mary Shika with Iowa Mentoring Partnership, and Mariah Himes, our AmeriCorps Vista, is here with us today. I'm really excited to have people join us on this call on this really important topic. Mariah's part of her FAD that she's working on is with data, and we're looking at some leadership nationally for Mentor 2, some opportunities for us to get some better picture of mentoring across the state. So Katie Orlando is leading the call today from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa, but I'd like to go through and have everybody do introductions so we know who's on the call. I know we're trying to make this really interactive today, so hopefully people will have comments and can always type in the chat box if you choose, if you don't want to speak up. And we're also going to do polls. And that being said, my disclaimer, this is all new for me, and Chad's not here holding my hand, but I think we're going to make this work, okay? And the other thing I'll point out, Katie, which I don't think I told you either, the materials, if you guys look in your toolbar, almost at the bottom by the chat, the materials that you are all available that you're going to be talking about. So you can click on those to access those during the call, and you can save them also, but I'll mail them out to the list of folks that are on this call afterwards as well. So let's go through and see who's on the call. So if I say your name, will you just introduce yourself and say what agency you represent, please? Abby.
Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands in Omaha, Nebraska, and we also serve Potawatomi and Mills County in Iowa.
Hi. Jamie? Jamie, we can't really hear you. Jamie's with Reach and Rise in Dubuque at the Dubuque YMCA. Katie?
I'm Katie Orlando. I'm the CEO for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa.
Thanks. Corey? And Corey, I think you're muted.
Corey's muted, but she's also from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa. She's the senior program manager, and she works out of our Bremer County office.
Thanks. Lynn?
I'm Lynn Carroll with part of Iowa Big Brothers Big Sisters, Marshalltown.
Okay. And Regina. And Regina, I think you're muted as well. You want to unmute your microphone? Regina from New Opportunities in Carroll and Audubon. I hope I got that correct. And Tony?
Yeah, I'm Tony Leo with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa.
All right, and Val. And Val is from Independence.
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you are. Okay, if you go ahead and mute yourself then, unless you're talking, so we don't hear all the background noise. I appreciate it. And I'll turn it over now to Katie.
Well, hello, everyone. Tony and I are super excited to present today's call. We are both from Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies, so the majority of what we are sharing is just about what we know through our brand, but also we're from two different agencies, and while we do a lot of the program delivery pieces the same, we've each, at our two agencies, kind of come up with our own systems to best track impact for our needs. So I'm interested in learning a little bit from Tony today, too, and I'm excited that other agencies are participating on the call today. As Mary said, there's going to be a lot of interaction, so hopefully when it's time for people to participate, we'll be able to hear you. If not, just chat in the box like Corey did, and I'll just kind of check to make sure that if people are asking questions that we can say them out loud for you and we'll answer them. So our agenda for today, we are hoping to go through a couple of different pieces with you. As I described this call to some of my staff, it's the rainbow of data collection. So from pre-match data collection, because believe it or not, most of you already realize that impact data collection starts the second the child walks through the door. And then we'll chase that with some match support data collection tips of the trade, and then relationship development surveys. We'll talk more about impact surveys. And then we're going to talk a little bit about using impact to illustrate your story and using impact to tell your story. and leveraging your story to increase your resources and funding is the last and final topic if we have time for it. A lot of what Tony and I will be sharing today, after we share our piece, we'll open it up to you. So if you all would like to share with everyone what your agency is doing that's working really well, that would be really, really helpful. And I'm happy to see that some folks that did the quarterly report and answered questions about the local impact that you're tracking, some of you are on the phone, so it'll be great to find out firsthand what exactly you're doing and if you've come up with tools and such to do that. So let's see, we have, I think, our first poll. So this is going to be interesting because this is the first time I've done this too. So for those of you that are sitting at a computer, Tony and I thought it would be great to kind of figure out where everyone's at on the call before we just assume. So I did see that poll for a second. It just went away. There we go. Oh, so Mary, is there a way to restart it? The poll is, my program does a great job collecting and tracking data, and we're going to have you guys all vote maybe. The spectrum of the answers is yes, exclamation point, like my program does a great job collecting and tracking data. Then we have lowercase yes with a period, and then I'm not sure is the middle answer, and then lowercase no with a period, and then nope, all caps, exclamation point. So is there a way to reset that, Mary?
Oh, okay. It says, maybe, let me try this again. I might have just closed.
You're doing such a great job.
No,
You're doing a great job.
Let's try this. No.
One person is doing yes lowercase. I know that.
I'm sorry. I think I completely failed with this one. I think I launched it and closed it. I thought it was closing the view. Oh.
It's okay. We'll keep going. So for those on the call, if you want to share your answer out loud instead.
Yeah,
so what is your answer from your agency? Are you doing a great job, kind of a good job, mediocre job, could be doing better, and then we're not tracking data really? What are you guys' thoughts on the call?
We have a yes from Tony and a yes from Regina. Don't be shy, everyone else. And Corey and Jamie say yes.
So a lot of yeses, but no all caps, exclamation point, yes. So looks like that maybe agencies are thinking you guys might have some room to grow. Would that be fair? All right. Well, let's keep going. First on our agenda today was to talk about pre-match data collection. And Tony and I, like Mary said before, we're able to get some resources together for you today. There's 6 different materials. If you look on the what's it called, like the control R thing for the call, if you look under the materials, there's a little plus sign, open that up, and then you'll be able to actually directly download those all, but Mary will send those to you after the fact as well. So we wanted to jump in talking about pre-match data collection and what that looks about. My agency in Northeast Iowa, we currently have a document that we give to youth before they come in for their interview. It's actually not titled an application. I have a feeling because a lot of our kids, like probably most of you, apply a long time before they're actually matched. Some of our kids are on our waiting list for 1, 2 years. Some of our kids are on our waiting list and have been there for 3 or 4 years and have been ready to be matched the whole time. So we give out this pre-interview questionnaire so that we can get up-to-date information from all of our families. If you open the document, you'll see that we track a lot. We're looking for youth victims of crime. We're looking for a free and reduced lunch. We're looking for a single-parent household, the typical things that probably most of you are looking at too. And so we'll use that to help us identify, as the child is enrolled in our program, what pieces they might be hitting for us. We have a funding source right now that does encourage us to match as many youth victims of crime as possible, and so we have it laid out. We'll have the parents check all the boxes that the child would fit into, and so that's helpful for us for one of our pieces. But I'm excited to hear about Tony's agency and what he does, because he uses ACEs for part of his pre-enrollment data. So Tony, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I sure can. We do kind of briefly use the ACEs. We don't actually administer the ACEs test itself to the youth coming in, but we kind of use some of the topics and the themes from the ACEs with our inquiries. So as a parent calls in to inquire about our program and to get the kids enrolled, we ask a number of different questions on the initial phone call with them. And we actually just track everything just on an Excel spreadsheet. So it's something that we're asking them, not only their contact information and, to describe their child's personality and interests and things. We also ask things like, has there been any abuse in the home? Has there been, is there anybody that has gone to prison or jail? A lot of those things kind of revolving around those questions that we've learned from the ACEs survey. So it kind of gives us a starting point. So then from there, we can determine those kids that we feel have a higher need. So the more ACEs that they have or more information that we get regarding that, we created a tier system. And so they get into tier 1, those that have more of the ACEs. So it gives us some direction of we really want to try to get these kids matched first. So it gives us kind of almost like a type of priority list, and it's just an internal thing that we use. We don't share that with the family or saying what tier they're in, but it's more just for staff internally. So it kind of gives us some place to start, some focus areas.
Nice. And then share with us about the Youth Outcome Development Plan that Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies do, and then how you guys are specifically using that.
Sure. So the Youth Outcome Development Plan, or the YODP as we call it too, that's something that throughout the course of the enrollment, we will ask the child and the parent both what's something that we want the child to work on. So we do have, we use a form that we ask the child to fill out, saying with some different areas, saying, would you like to, almost like a checkbox, like do you want to improve on self-confidence or expressing feelings or, your sense of the future, those kinds of things. So they go through and self-identify what some things that they would like to work on. And then we also do something similar with the parents, and the parents can identify what they would like to have the match focus on with their child, or some areas that their child can improve upon. And then from there, we also actually have the case manager and the enrollment staff will kind of have their own ideas of things that throughout the course of the enrollment interviews and getting to know the family, if they notice some areas that they think the child could use some extra help in as well, then we kind of pull all those together into the YODP. So we talk about, the strengths, everything that the stuff that the child is good at, and then also some areas that maybe they'd like to improve upon, which then those become the goals for the match. And it's something that we identify early on, and we talk with all parties. So the child, the parent, and then the big two, when they get introduced, they know from the very start, all right, here are some of the goals that we, as a match, would like to try to attain over the course of the coming year. So it's something that's very intentional, and that's something that works well for us. We've also have been partnering with the Des Moines Public School System and have asked them to, or they have a form, like a parent authorization form that we give to the parents, asking them to fill out for us as well, which then would give us access to the child's grades and attendance, which helps us then reinforce the YODP and the goals. It gives us more goals to work on and ways to achieve those.
Nice. And I know, like with Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Youth Outcome Development Plan isn't something that necessarily fits into like a neat little survey, but it's definitely a great tool for us to collect data and just kind of use it as a benchmark too, an additional benchmark aside from the surveys that we also do. And then I like how Tony shared that his agency uses the attendance and grade records to reinforce the YODP. I know there's a lot of mentoring organizations out there that use the grades and attendance as the actual outcome, but I like that Big Brothers Big Sisters takes it one step further and uses it to track even deeper impact. So what the agency's on the call, if you want to share over the phone or you can type into the little chat box, what does your agency do to collect pre-match, or what data does your agency collect pre-match? What do you guys do pre-match to capture some of your data? Anyone want to share? Val, any thoughts?
There you go. This is the interactive part. So Katie, feel free to call on people.
I called him Val, but I think she might still be muted. Oh, and then Jamie shares similar to what Big Brothers Big Sisters does. And then Regina says, we do a pre-match survey to parents and then attempt to get the same survey from the mentees' teachers. Great, so that's nice to hear that you're actually involving the individual mentees' teachers. At my agency, we do that for the teachers that are willing to help us in our school-based model, and then even in some of our community-based matches too. We just have a really strong relationship with some of our schools and teachers agency-wide, but some teachers we just aren't able to do that. But we like it when we can. So great.
This is Val in Independence. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
As Katie just said, in Independence, since I'm in the schools, we do a lot of behavior data, how many times they've been out of the classroom, some of that helps us determine what kind of match they need, how often they should meet, so forth. And then because, again, we're in the school, we meet with the counselor, the teacher, send letters to the parents, tell them what we're thinking, those kind of things.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, Val. You just actually reminded me another thing that my agency does, and I know Tony's agency does this too, I'm sure. We have developed a couple of specialty programs to further meet the needs of our community, and also it's helped us get some funding. So one of our specialty programs is Read to Succeed, and right now there's no real easy way to collect reading scores, unfortunately, from our district. So we are individually getting them from each school, but that's something else too that we'll do for our specialty programs. We'll try to connect the additional impact that specific kids are having and get that pre-match too. Well, why don't we move on to our next topic, which is match support, and Tony's going to lead us through this entire section. So take it away, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So for the match support things, for the child development, what we do is through our national office, we use something called the Youth Outcome Survey. And we collect that, we do like a baseline once during the enrollment portion of when the child's coming through. And so the survey pretty much determines or asks questions like, things like how they're trying to gauge how they're doing in school, how they feel about themselves, what their grades are like, do they have a supportive adult in their life, those types of things. And so we do this for kids that are 9 and older, because we feel like, I know our national office says that they think that the survey is probably, we want to make sure that the kids are old enough to comprehend what we're asking them. But it is something we do in person with them, or over the phone. We don't have a parent administer it. We don't have a teacher administer it, if possible. It's something that we ask. We try to do with them in person, or over the phone themselves. So basically, we do the baseline, and then we'll do it at the match anniversary. So every year after that too. So as long as they're 9 and older, we do that. As far as the relationship development, we have a tool called the Strength of Relationship survey, which really just is designed for the child and the volunteer, where we each ask them the questions about how they feel like their relationship is developing. So it gives our match support specialists or our case managers a good tool to use to determine if there's any areas where the match is not, if maybe they're not bonding as much as we'd like them to, or if there's something that's kind of missing. It kind of gives us a little bit of a tool to look to try to help and support them and to get them some of the support that they need. And we do that at the 3-month point of the match. So after they've been matched together for 3 months, we ask that from both the volunteer and the little. And in Central Iowa, we do them over the phone for the child, but then for the volunteer, we actually send out a SurveyMonkey link and ask them to complete that, and then we can upload that into our AIM database, which helps us analyze that on the back end. So, and then actually in Central Iowa too, we are still doing the survey called the POE, the Performance Outcome Evaluation. which is given more towards the teachers and the parents in community-based, so kind of gets their perspective as well.
Nice. And then Tony and I thought it would be really helpful for you guys, because all of us are doing match support, probably different levels, different amounts of it, different methods. But Big Brothers Big Sisters, for any new match that's together for under a year, we connect with everyone monthly, every side of the match monthly. And then for season matches, usually it's quarterly or every other month, depending on how much support they need. If they still need a lot of support, then we'll keep it monthly. But one of the things that we thought would be helpful to share with you today are just a couple of tools about like different questions that you could ask your mentors, kids, and parents, if applicable, for the programs that connect with the parents, whether school-based or community-based. We thought that might be helpful because I know from my experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters, I've been with the network now for 7 years, and when I first started, I was a mesh support specialist making an impressive $8 an hour. And I remember one of the things that I struggled most with was just like not using the same question over and over and over again. Not like, it just felt a little stale. I would always ask, like, so what have you guys been up to, and do you feel safe when you're with, you know, fill in the blank, and what sorts of things have you noticed in your child? What have you taught them? Like, I felt like they were really elementary questions, probably because I was asking them every single time. So I came up with a list of questions for each topic. Big Brothers Big Sisters captures 8 different categories of support every month. So if you open up the document that says match support questions, you'll see that it's broken down by like the 8 different topic areas that we focus on, like activities, relationship development, child development, relationship between the parent and the mentor, if applicable, child performance in school, etc. And I just came up with like a bunch of questions just to keep it real. Some of them are like professional. Some of them are a little like, you know, to break the ice, especially with the kids. And then that document I've been working on since I started with Big Brothers Big Sisters 7 years ago, and just keep adding and adding and adding more questions. So it's a pretty hardy document now. And then Tony is sharing a resource from another Big Brothers Big Sisters agency, Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Ozarks. And they're a really strong agency, and their program director, Chelsea Dykeman, she put together like a list of match support questions you could ask, but she did it a little bit differently, which I'm like really impressed by. She actually like did a timeline for the first year of the match and timed it out like by month, and like what questions you could ask each month. And some of the questions like are progressive, like you build on every month, and some are just, you know, one and done questions. But I thought that was really smart, since we're all measuring relationship impact to some extent. Like she built the questions that way. So I think that's a really impressive document, and I'm glad that Tony shared it. And we thought that, you know, a lot of agencies, again, do match support differently. But I know there's some agencies out there that don't go to the extent of match support that Big Brothers Big Sisters, the service delivery model, does. So that's also a way to measure impact. Again, not a survey that you're capturing like one answer 1 time or 2 times a year on, but it's a little more fluid, and it gives you a little bit a better sense of the match and their impact too. So does any other agency want to share anything else that you use during like your monthly match support or quarterly or bi-monthly match support that captures impact too? We'll wait a couple of seconds for people to write in the chat box if they want to. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments, but feel free to ask anything that you think about as we continue moving on. Next, Tony and I want to dive a little bit deeper into impact surveys and find out a little bit more about what agencies are doing, especially like locally. If you've come up with any surveys that help measure things that have really helped you in identifying how you're impacting your youth and your community. So when we look at youth impact surveys, Tony's already shared our Youth Outcome Survey, or YOS. Tony, did you want to add anything more specific about like the different categories that the YOS measures? Like maybe some example questions or something like that?
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. So for the YOS, I mean, I think it's basically broken down into, see if I remember this right, it's the social acceptance, scholastic competency, I think, and educational.
Yeah.
Something
There's
like
like
that.
risk.
Like
we measure
attitude.
like risk, avoiding risk, or I forget how that one's
Right.
actually worded.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't, like risk attitudes or something like that, I think, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, they're kind of talking about different questions about, I'm trying to think. It was like, do you feel comfortable with, or how do you perform at school? Are you good at school? Or, it's those types of things. And everything's like on a scale, like, that they strongly agree, somewhat agree. It's been a while since I've actually had to look at it.
Neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Like
neutral.
other questions that are asked. They ask a lot about like peer connections on Big Brothers Big Sisters. Like wants to measure like healthy relationships too. So some of the questions include like I feel like I have enough friends, and then there's another one kind of to make sure that the child is answering like not like the right way, but the real way. A lot of kids still, even though they might be 9 and our national office thinks they're mature enough and will do a good job at taking the survey, some kids still do answer the way that they think we want them to. So there's a couple of questions that try to catch them. So it asks them, like, I have enough friends, and they'll say, strongly agree or not at all. And then another question is like, I would like more friends. So it kind of makes sure that the kids are giving us like really good information. And it's the way that we figure out impact is like with a lot of math, our national office has done it all for us. Tony mentioned some of the impact areas that we track earlier. So the YOS itself has 32 questions, but like 6 of them will be in one category to help us measure one impact, and the questions will average out the impact overall score. So we try not to just get like a linear impact. We try to make sure that it's pretty comprehensive, if that makes sense. And we're definitely focused on healthy relationships, avoiding risk, educational success, greater confidence is a huge subject area for us, and higher aspirations. So their surveys also measure if the child has like career goals and thinks they're going to graduate high school and go into college and things like that. And then for our another tool that's going to be coming out that might be helpful for some agencies looking to do something in addition to what you're doing now is a measurement guidance toolkit for mentoring programs. And Mary's pretty pumped about this, and she's going to talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, this is something that researchers at Mentor and some other national mentoring researchers have put together, and it's available on the National Mentoring Resource Center website. And they do have measurements in all of those areas listed. It's a really robust site, and oh my goodness, I couldn't name. There are probably close to 50 or 60 measures that are available there. They've all been tested for validity and reliability. If you didn't have the opportunity to watch the September collective webinar, it was on this toolkit, and those are always on Mentor's website. Just Google Mentor Collective Webinar, and I would really encourage you to watch that, or you can go through the slides. But there's a nice FAQ section on this page too that explains to you about using these. I know we're going to look at these more in depth. We're not going to try to reinvent the wheel, but as we try to tell the story of mentoring in Iowa, looking at maybe a couple measures that we'd like to probably pilot and look at all of us collecting some similar data so we can tell, as I said, a collective story. We're all looking at some common denominators. We're all doing them just a little differently. So if there's a way we could do this without making it, burdensome to you, but that would be a great impact statement for the state.
I am most interested about the mental and emotional health measurement domain. I think that's really interesting, and that's something that Big Brothers Big Sisters isn't really currently tracking. And just by looking at like the Iowa behavioral survey, or the one that they do every year for 5th, 8th, and 11th graders, it's really like when you look at the results and how many 11th graders have attempted suicide, it's 10% or something extremely high. So it would make sense that mentoring organizations should probably start to track that too, because maybe there's something else that we could be doing in our models, in our service delivery, that could actually address that even more than the relationship element. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But do any of you have any questions about this tool and where to find it on the Mentoring Resource Center, nationalmentoringresourcecenter.org? It's a good one. All right, and then Tony also has already mentioned our Strength of Relationship survey, what Big Brothers Big Sisters uses to track relationship development. So just so folks who aren't with the Big Brothers Big Sisters network on the call are clear, because it sounds like Big Brothers Big Sisters is always doing surveys, but actually it's not. It's kind of streamlined a little bit. The Youth Outcomes Survey that tracks youth outcomes, we administer pre-match, and then every year on the child's anniversary, usually, unless there's school-based match, and then we'll do that at the end of the school year. And then the Strength of Relationship Survey is a 3-month survey that we give to both the child and the mentor. And I like that survey because, like the YOS is, like combines different scores, different questions to come up with an overall impact score. The Relationship Development Survey compares the answers from the mentor and the child and comes up with a match relationship score from a score of 1 to 5. 5 is like a strong match, 1 is like, wow, this match probably needs to close because they're just not clicking. So I really like that survey. And so we give that out 3 months because we feel like that's a short time, but hopefully the match has developed a little bit. And then we give that also out on the anniversary of the match date too, or the end of the school year. And that survey also tracks mentor satisfaction. Some of the questions are asking the mentor if they're satisfied with the job that they're doing essentially, and if they think that they've made a difference in the child's life. And Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa, 95% of our mentors last year said that they believe they've made an impact and that they know that they're important to their child. So that's a really helpful impact for us to know. It really helps us tell our story, which we can talk about in a minute. So enough about Big Brothers Big Sisters. What are your agencies using for your local impact? I would love to hear what other people are doing to track impact through surveys, whether it's tracking direct outcomes, if it's tracking strength of relationship, or if it's tracking something completely different. So if agencies would be so empowered to share over the phone, or if you want to type something in the chat box, I can read it, and then we'll give you like a couple of seconds to do that. So who would like to go first? How about, let's see, how about Regina? Do you have anything interesting that you guys are doing that you would mind sharing with all of us?
Well, I mean, shouldn't I signed in? Like, usually it says your name. I think there were a few times she called someone's name. Or maybe they were just muted, and I don't even know how to unmute myself.
I can hear you.
I don't know. Really weird, but I thought that.
Okay, so Jamie, she shared in her chat box, our matches only last 1 year with possibility of extending for 6 months at a time. Due to this shorter period of match time, we evaluate goals if the match is extending. There isn't a survey taken, but an in-person meeting is held with parent, guardian, myself, mentee, and mentor. Great, thanks for sharing that.
Katie?
Yes.
This is Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. Hey, before we were on AIM and using YOS, we specifically sent out a survey to our teachers for our school-based matches. And that was asking if they had seen a growth or improvement. So they were pretty simple as far as yes and no kinds of answers. But we were asking them, have they seen an improvement in the child's reading, in their behavior, in their self-confidence, in their attitude towards school, in their attendance, those kinds of things. And that has always given us some great feedback. SurveyMonkey was the tool that we used, and it was an opportunity for us to really just get a quick response from the teacher rather than having to worry about work about how we're going to get the paper to them to fill out and how they're going to get it back to us. And that proved pretty good. We didn't get responses from all the teachers, and yet we got enough to be able to say, 100% of the kids in this age group improved in their self-confidence. And like that. That's what we use.
In the first quarter reports that people filled out and answered the question about how do you track your impact, what system do you use, a lot of folks entered in the answer that they use Excel. But some agencies use databases I've never heard of, so I researched them and kind of checked them out. And one of them that I really enjoyed was Innovative Mentoring Database. I think Regina's one that's using that. And then there's another one called Qualtrics, Qualtrics, I think. And I couldn't get as far in as I could with Innovative Mentoring Database when I was pretending that I wanted to do a free trial. But it seemed like that would be a really helpful impact tracking tool, and even to the point where it creates charts and charts and like tables for you too, to help you tell your story. So if anyone wants to check that out, or if anyone's looking for a tool to help you collect data if you're not part of a national organization that's done it for you, that might be a good lead for you too.
And don't forget, I think it was Jim Conway at the conference said that Excel is used by Google and other tech companies. So Excel is powerful too. I certainly do not know all the ins and outs and all the capabilities that it has too.
Yeah. Jamie says Qualtrics is awesome, but so technical, not entirely user-friendly. Thanks for that. All right. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, our specific surveys are brand protected, so we can't send you physical copies of them. But if anyone who's a non-Big Brothers, Big Sisters agency that would be interested in getting some help developing your surveys so that they're checking outcomes differently than you are now, feel free to reach out. I'm sure any agency in our state would be more than happy to give you a few pointers and tips and kind of help you figure out where to start on that. But I'll just volunteer Tony and I since we're doing this call. But I'm sure that if you reach out to anybody, they would be happy to help. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, there's 10 agencies in the state, but we are pretty open to sharing because we really respect the brand of mentoring in general, and so it's important for us that to help other programs make sure that they're doing a great job tracking impact too, so we can have a strong mentoring brand in Iowa. All right, I believe the next slide is another poll. So we'll see how we do. This poll, we wanted to find out about impacts, like checking your impact. So does a third party, so another nonprofit or outside agency, validate your program's impact? Meaning, is it just your agency staff pulling your impact numbers and reporting those, or do you have somebody else checking the math, making sure that your impact is valid? They're kind of like making sure that your impact's legit, and so when you're writing grants or telling your story, you can say that somebody else is validating your impact too. So the poll is yes or no, super easy. So if you guys want to take a second to click the button on your computer, or if you want to just enter in the chat box. And again, the question was, does a third party, like another nonprofit or outside agency, validate your program's impact? Okay, we'll give the poll another couple of seconds. And then whoever is, one of our phone callers is getting a lot of background noise, so if you're calling in on your phone, if you could mute yourself, that would be really great. Sounds like a really exciting conversation that's being had. All right, Mary, do you want to go ahead and try to close out the poll and we'll see what answers we have? Hey, 50-50. Look at that. So yes, some agencies have another third party or nonprofit or outside agency looking at their data, and some don't. I don't want to spend like a ton of time on this, but I just wanted to throw it out there for agencies who haven't considered it before, that there's a couple of resources that might be available to you to make sure that your impact is being validated by somebody else. A lot of grants now too, especially state grants, are requiring this. Like I know the 21st Century Grants, that's part of the application, is that you have to write in the grant that proposal that you're going to have somebody else look at your impact and either design the survey for you and administer it, or take your results that you've received from your administered survey and do the math out for you and come up with the percentages in your impact statement for you. But if you're not there yet, there's a couple of resources that are available in the state of Iowa. All of the colleges and universities I feel that I've interacted with so far, there would be like a class or a department that would be interested in doing this as part of the curriculum now for a lot of different majors, from like direct majors like human services fields to math, statistics, and political science too. So don't be afraid to reach out. Usually they'll do it for free or like a small stipend. But if you're applying for grant funding, you can just write that in. So that's helpful. Also, there are some third parties in Iowa that do check impact for nonprofits. The one that Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa uses is an organization called Success Link that actually began probably 15, 20 years ago as a result of Big Brothers Big Sisters at the time here in Waterloo needing someone to check their data for them to help them build their story and help tell their story even stronger. So they've since evolved and now are willing to work with any nonprofit statewide. Even in Nebraska, they have some clients there. And we've never been charged because we helped them turn into the way they are now. But just knowing a little bit about Brad McCullough, their executive director, they get grant funding to do it. So if you were interested in having somebody check your data for you, it might be worth reaching out to Success Link to see if that might be a helpful resource for you. Definitely low cost, or can't speak for him, but maybe even free with a lot of notice. And they also are able to help you design impact surveys too. And then they'll look at your current impact surveys and the process for collecting impact data, and they'll be able to give you some good feedback. But they've been an extremely helpful resource for us, and we just use them in one of our grants. And I think that's probably the reason why we received it, because we have that relationship with them. So the funder knows that the impact that we're saying has actually been proven to be true. So we don't have to talk about that much longer, but if you guys have any other questions about that, feel free to ask at the end of the call and I can give you some more input. So the next half of our call is going to be about using impact to illustrate your story, and then to tell your story, and then to leverage your funding. So at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa, we've come up with a couple of tools to make our impact shine. So one of them is an infographic, and we've included that file for you today. It is in here in PDF, but I have it as a Word document too, because I'm not very high tech. So anything that I design is going to be something that I can easily go in and edit for the next year, maybe change the font to a different color so it looks different year after year. But infographics are like something hip and cool that a lot of nonprofits are doing right now to illustrate their story instead of just like writing out everything in text. So I can't see it on my screen yet. I still see that poll. And I don't know if you guys can see it yet either. But essentially it's just we have like a little pie chart to demonstrate the amount of youth that we're serving in the percent male versus female. We have like different text written in different ways, typography a little bit. We have a little bar chart that shows some of our impacts. Looks like this is from 2014-15. And then we talk a little bit about the kind of kids that we serve, just because I don't know if you guys find this true for your mentoring organizations, but some of the stigma that we have here up in Northeast Iowa is that all of our kids are quote unquote broken, and that's not necessarily true. As you guys know, there's really no type of child. All of our kids are completely different. They come from completely different homes. Some of them do have two parents. A lot of our community members still have a hard time thinking about that. They just think single parent, low income. And while the majority of our kids probably are in that category, we do serve other kids too. So we find that that's important as we illustrate our impact to make sure we're including that too. And then we also talk about the amount of hours that our volunteers, our bigs, have dedicated to their littles. In 2014-15, we came up with 15,440 hours for all of our mentors that year. And we find that that's really helpful. It helps us paint a good picture as we're describing our impact too. The next slide is something that I pulled from another agency, another Big Brothers Big Sisters. They came up with like an even better little graph to show some of their impact. So some of the things that they're showcasing are that 96% of their littles or youth improved or maintained relationships with peers or adults, 94% improved their attitude towards school, 94% decreased risk behaviors. Those 5 categories that you see are what our youth outcome surveys track. But at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa, I actually go into our raw data and pull out even further. As we mentioned before, the youth outcome survey has 32 different questions that measure different impact. So I'll break it down a little bit further. Like decreased risk behaviors is too general for me, and then also too general for our funders. Like, what does that actually mean? So I'll break it down by the actual type of risk so I can show them how our littles are impacted in each area, whether it's avoiding gangs, drugs and alcohol. That's a big one for Big Brothers Big Sisters and things like that. Skipping school is also considered a risk behavior, missing school, etc. So that's just another example if you're trying to think of an interesting way to illustrate your story. The next slide is shifting to telling your story. So we have like the typical brochure that has a little panel of our impacts on there, but we also have this one-page info sheet that's easy and that we bring to a lot of our presentations with different folks in the community, whether it's donors or stakeholders or future supporters. So it just lists out our impact, and our staff all try to remember between 3 and 4 of their favorite percentage impact statements, so that when they're out, they don't have to look at the paper. They can like speak from the heart, and that's kind of how we start to shape our story and tell it a little bit. We'll each have certain matches in mind that would fit those areas. Like for me, I am a big sister, so it makes it super easy because I see my little sister and the change that she's had, and I've only been matched with her now for about 7 months, I believe, and I mean, she's changed so much. So she really hadn't given a lot of thought to like high school and college before she met me, but it was just a simple conversation of what she wanted to be when she grew up and helping her get from that goal to like action steps and what she would need to do. So she's part of the impact. 90% of our kids who came to us that didn't believe they would graduate high school now believe they can and will. And then of that 90%, 65% now also want to go to college or like a trade school and stuff like that. So she would fit into that category. We have a couple of other impact areas that we like to talk about too. Grades is really important for us. Our youth outcome survey measures kids that have improved their score, but then also kids that have maintained. So we're measuring, well, usually when Big Brothers Big Sisters share their stories, most agencies, I think, usually talk about it, about how many kids have like stayed consistent since they've joined our program versus the amount of kids that have improved. We just like to focus on the growth. So we kind of take our kids that have maintained out of our impact, but I'm sure your agencies probably do it the way that works best for you. We just think it's really impressive that out of all of our kids, 67% have improved their grades, and attendance has always been an issue for us. So 53% of them have done that out of the ones that were struggling. And then, like I said before, we're also tracking our bigs and our mentors and how they're feeling about their relationship. And so we like to tell the impact score that we have from our bigs that 100% of them feel confident in their role as a mentor to their little. I think that's really strong. And when we're trying to recruit mentors, when we say that, then it opens up the conversation about all the things that our agency does to support the mentors, so that they can get to the point where they feel confident in the role as a mentor. And I think that sharing that impact piece, that all of our bigs feel that way after 12 months, that they are confident they can do this, I think helps people that are kind of on the fence, especially Big Brothers. And then 99% of our bigs have helped their little cope with a challenging situation at home or school. I think when we share that with potential mentors, prospects, they're able to see like themselves, they envision themselves making a difference with a child, that like it actually like will probably happen to them unless they're that 1%, but most likely it will happen to them where they'll be able to see the impact and will be able to feel the impact and know that they actually are making a difference. So that's how we list out our impacts, just in a not so artsy but just easy to read, one page. We find that anything more than a page is just too much for folks. And then on the back of this, sometimes we print out some of our bios of our littles who are waiting or ready to be matched rather. And so that kind of helps our the mentors and the donors that we're talking to kind of envision the kids even more and get a better sense. We'll change the names and not use pictures in those bios just because you've privacy obviously, but that's another way that we will tell our story too. One of the things too that we've created that I've included for you too as one of the documents you can download is something that our United Way has been asking for. It's new for us. Maybe other agencies on the call already have this like well thought out. Like probably could share theirs and it would be a lot more developed than this. But we were asked to, we do a great job telling our story in terms of the impact, but our United Way asked us to put together a life of a one-to-one mentoring match and like break it down even further. The way that Big Brothers Big Sisters measures our impact is usually at the end of the first year, at the end of the second year, this impact was achieved, ... But they wanted to see like first week, first month, third month, after 1 year, like what's that, the 5 years, what does that look like? How about 10 years? Some of our matches hit that. And then our agency serves kids after high school too. We don't close the match or graduate the match. We keep them in our program until they tell us that they're feeling pretty strong about it. So right now we have a couple of littles in college who are continuing to meet with their mentor regularly and still feel like they need our support. And the mentors still feel like that too. So we put together this document as another way to tell our story. It's a lot of text on one page, but again, the one-page thing is important for us. And we've gotten some good feedback about it. So feel free if you want, if you don't have this yet, your agency, or if you're thinking about applying for United Way funding. I don't know if like all the United Ways are the same here in Iowa, but my last agencies, eventually they all had the same asks for mentoring organizations. So this might be something you might use at some point, but it's worked for us. It really has. It's helped break things down and really show the nitty-gritty impact that our littles are our youth are experiencing. Another piece that we have also designed to tell our story is something that we've combined with our annual campaign. We don't do a traditional annual campaign anymore, meaning at the end of the year or like later this fall. A lot of nonprofits mail out letters with envelopes asking for money or pledges. Just alone yesterday in my mail I got 7. I didn't even know I was on 7 nonprofits mailing list yet in Iowa. I've only been here a year. But I guess it's the season already. So we don't do that just because everyone here in Northeast Iowa is already saturated with those. What we instead do is we send out a holiday card after Thanksgiving, and the holiday card will have a story from one of our littles that they've written themselves. So this particular story on the screen now is from our little sister Annie. She has been in our program now for 2 years. This is our card from last year. And Annie's story hits me closely because her aunt, who was a role model to her, was hit and killed by a drunk driver. And so her mom enrolled her in the program because her mom is also going to college and working a lot, a single-parent household, so she has to work a lot to support Annie and her siblings. So she's not around to be Annie's mentor consistently, so that's why, with the lack of an aunt who had been there for Annie, that's why she entered and now is with Amber, her big sister. And so that's their picture. That's actually them. And some people asked me that already. That's them. And we really think it's important for our little to tell the story. And then this is like the inside of the card. On the other flap inside, then we have the ask from Annie asking for people to consider supporting our agency in the 2017 year. And we include an envelope. But it's also a Christmas card. So we combine 2 mailings in one, and we don't really call it an annual campaign. It's unique, it's different, and it really does help us tell our story through the mail and not necessarily in person. But it makes a huge impact, and we were able actually to raise quite a bit of funding too last year. So with this Christmas card, holiday card. So that might be a tool too that if you're not doing, you might want to consider. Let's see. And then lastly, and then we'll ask you guys another question before we end the call. Leveraging your story and how to increase resources and funding. Some things that Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa does. Easy things. I mean, it involves a little bit of your time or a staff member's time at your agency, but we try to join as many committees or task forces as we can. All of our staff are encouraged to be on at least one community saying, whether it's a task force committee, even a service organization we have, or civic organization, we do have some money in our budget because we know that's really important. And that gives us the opportunity to be in front of other people in the community who are like-minded or who want to learn more about youth-serving nonprofits. And so we're able to kind of be in their face all the time. And, you know, we're always around to tell our story with them. So a lot of the relationships that we've developed over the years, even though in the past it's just been primarily our time and helping in whatever way we could with that group that we've joined, now we're really seeing it pay off. We have an exchange club in Waverly that Corey Chamberlain, who's on this call, joined maybe 6-7 months ago, and they've always supported us heavily, but we've seen an increase in support now that she's actually part of their club. I'm a member of the Lions Club, and I've spoken with the club only once, and already 7 of them out of the 80 are mentors. And then I'm also involved in Kiwanis too, and the same. We already have a lot of Kiwanians that are also signing up to become mentors. Some of our staff members are on task forces around literacy and attendance. We do have a new task force starting about ACEs and using ACEs in our community, and we have actually one of our staff members is chairing that. So we know that just putting ourselves out there will help us share our impact even more. And whether it's being on a grant or creating a new relationship that will eventually lead to a mentor or to funding, we know it's worth it. School district relationships, I think, is a no-brainer for those on the call that either are paid directly or employed by the school district. But for those of us who aren't, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa was working pretty closely with our Waterloo School District. We've always had an MOU with them. And then our Cedar Falls School District, we've always had matches in their schools, in our school-based program, but we've never had an MOU with them. So our relationship now has grown to a level in Cedar Falls where we have an MOU, and the superintendent himself is our contact with the district. We thought we might get like a secretary or some staff member, but nope, he wanted to be our contact. Like if we're having a hard time getting in a school, or if the school's not referring youth fast enough for us, he actually gets involved because that's how passionate he is. So I'm really excited to see where that relationship goes. And in Waterloo now, they actually, we have a contract with them. They actually pay us a small amount each year to offer the services we've been offering for 53 years in their schools. This is the first year that they're giving us, they're investing in us directly with funding. So you just never know what that could look like. Workplace mentoring, some of us already do that, where you have your matches actually meet directly in the big workplace after school, either every week or every other week, and the workplace itself invests in the program. Growing program capacity, I think, just comes along with being able to leverage your resources to more folks. We were able, because our impact is so strong, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa has one of the top 6 agencies in the country for the impact that we can demonstrate that our youth that our bigs are having on our youth. So we've been able to write that into grants lately, and we've seen tremendous support, especially from the Attorney General's office in the state, because our impact has been validated. And then cultivating donors, I think, also is a no-brainer. I think when people hear how well you're doing and you can back it up with actually like actual stories and percentages, it's hard to say no to that. Like when you can demonstrate the true need. And one of the events that we do that helps us leverage our story is something that I think other agencies are also doing too around National Mentor Month. We do in December. It's called the Start Something Big Breakfast. It's a free breakfast, but everyone knows when they go they're going to be asked to pledge by our littles directly, that our littles are going to walk around with envelopes collecting all of their checks. And also our littles are sharing their stories with the audience. Last year everyone met Annie, one of the Christmas card. They also met another little DeMonte whose mother just really isn't helpful, supportive at all. He's lived several places, and he was in the ROTC and wore his uniform to the breakfast. And he was in our program for 10 years. His match just closed today. He's in college now and just is in Nebraska, so it's a little far for his big to see him regularly, but he's feeling like he's pretty set. But it was just really impactful getting everyone in a room, luring them with caramel French toast, and being in a room for an hour with our kids who were sitting at every single table with a big, and that was just a really great way to do it. So those are some things that Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa does. We have a minute if any other agency wants to talk about other ways that you guys are leveraging impact to increase your resources and funding. I'll pause just to give people time to write in the little chat box, or if they want to share over the phone. Okay, I don't see. Oh, go ahead. Does someone?
No, she said she's waiting. Everybody wants to write in the chat box. My computer's frozen, so even if I wanted to write in there, I can't.
Whoever just said that, we can actually hear you. So if you wanted to share something out loud, go for it. Let's see. Regina shared, we are doing Mugs for Mentoring, a Mugs for Mentoring fundraiser, October 15th through November 15th, where we ask our matches to sell 5 cake mugs per match. Interesting. Okay, well, not hearing or seeing anyone else's comments. Does anyone have any general questions for Tony or I or any other agencies on the call? All right. Well, I guess that is all. Definitely, if any of you think of anything after, or if you are really interested in the resources that Tony and I have shared, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our emails are 2 more slides in. But before we get to that, the next peer share call, which will be the second Thursday of November, November 10th at 2 p.m., is going to be about National Mentoring Month. I know Val, who's on the call, is one of the sharers. And I think we're going to try to find a couple of other agencies to share what they do too. So if you're on the call today and would be interested in doing what Tony and I did, and kind of taking the lead, that would be really much appreciated. We love it when we can rotate agencies around so that we can all learn from each other. That's, you know, the peer share call philosophy is that we hope to learn from everybody, not just, you know, a certain kind of agency or the same people every month. So if you are interested in being one of the panelists or facilitators for the call, feel free to reach out to myself. And then Mary, if you can flip to the next slide, Tony and my emails are there if you guys want to reach out to us directly. And the last slide is Mary and everyone that works at the Iowa Mentoring Partnerships contacts too.
Great. Thanks so much for leading the call today, Katie and Tony, for all of your input, and for everyone else that joined the call and for their sharing their ideas as well. And look forward to talking again next month, and I'll send out the materials that were shared today too.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your participation today.
Thank you.